The rain poured down relentlessly, drenching the streets of Mumbai in a cold, unrelenting embrace. The city, usually alive with the hum of activity, seemed to retreat into itself under the weight of the storm. Streetlights flickered faintly, their glow reflecting off puddles that pooled unevenly across the roads. Cars and rickshaws splashed through the water as they hurried past, leaving behind trails of muddy spray. It was one of those nights when most people preferred to stay indoors, wrapped in blankets, sipping hot tea and watching old movies on television. But not Rajiv Kumar. Rajiv was a bus driver for the Mumbai Metropolitan Transport Corporation, MMTC, and his job didn't stop just because the weather turned sour. For him, every day and every night was about ensuring passengers reached their destinations safely. Tonight, however, had been unusually quiet, with the heavy rains keeping many. Indoors, the buses were nearly empty. Rajiv had already completed his last scheduled route, but something made him hesitate before turning off the engine and heading home. Maybe it was the gnawing feeling in his gut, the same instinct that always told him when something wasn't quite right. Or maybe it was simply the sight of a small figure huddled under a tree at the edge of the bus stop. Squinting through the rain-soaked windshield, Rajiv leaned forward slightly to get a better look. At first glance, he thought it might be a stray dog seeking shelter from the storm. But then the figure moved, and Rajiv realized it was a child, a boy, no older than 8 or 9, sitting on the wet pavement, shivering uncontrollably. His clothes were soaked, clinging to his thin frame, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. He looked utterly lost. Rajiv sighed deeply, running a hand over his face. He knew what he should do. His wife, Priya, would be waiting at home with dinner ready. She hated it when he came home late, especially on rainy nights like this. And yet, there was no way he could drive away, leaving the boy alone in such miserable conditions. What if he fell ill? What if something worse happened? God will forgive me for being late tonight, Rajiv muttered to himself as he grabbed his umbrella from the side compartment and stepped out into the rain. The moment he opened the door, the icy wind hit him like a slap. Rajiv pulled his jacket tighter around himself and hurried toward the boy. As he approached, he noticed the boy's wide, frightened eyes staring up at him. There was fear in them, but also exhaustion. Rajiv squatted down so he was eye level with the child. "Beta," he said softly, using the Hindi term for child. "What are you doing here alone? Where's your family?" For a moment, the boy didn't respond. He just stared at Rajiv, trembling harder now. Then finally he spoke, his voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. I got lost," he stammered. Tears welled up in his eyes as he continued. "We were going somewhere, but there were so many people, and now I can't find Papa." Rajiv's heart sank. Lost children weren't uncommon in a bustling city like Mumbai, where crowds often swallowed individuals whole. But seeing this boy, so young and vulnerable, tugged at something deep inside him. He couldn't imagine how scared the boy must have been, sitting alone in the dark, surrounded by strangers rushing to escape the storm. "Don't worry, Beta," Rajiv said reassuringly, placing a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "You're safe now. Come with me, we'll figure this out together." Without waiting for a response, Rajiv extended his umbrella over the boy and guided him toward the bus. The warmth inside the vehicle was a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. Rajiv helped the boy climb aboard and settled him into a seat near the front. Then he retrieved a thermos from his bag and poured some hot chai into a plastic cup. "Here, drink this," Rajiv said, handing the cup to the boy. "It'll warm you up." The boy accepted the tea gratefully, wrapping his small hands around the cup. As he sipped, his shivering began to subside. Rajiv took the opportunity to ask more questions. "What's your name, Beta?" he asked gently. Arjun," the boy replied after swallowing a mouthful of tea. "Arjun, good name," Rajiv said with a smile. "Do you remember anything else? Like where you were going or what your father looks like?" Arjun frowned, clearly struggling to recall details. "We went to a big mall," he said slowly. "There were lots of shops and escalators. Mama said we should stick close to Papa, but then I don't know what happened. Rajiv nodded sympathetically. Big malls could be overwhelming, especially for a child. It was easy to lose track of someone in the chaos of shoppers and vendors. Still, Arjun's description gave them a starting point. Rajiv decided to call the police once they returned to the depot. Until then, he focused on keeping the boy calm and comfortable. As they sat together in the dimly lit bus, Rajiv regaled Arjun with stories from his own childhood. He told him about growing up in a small village, playing cricket with his friends in the fields, and sneaking mangoes from his neighbor's orchard. Arjun listened intently, occasionally laughing despite his predicament. For a while, the fear in his eyes faded, replaced by curiosity and amusement. Despite the boy's temporary cheer, Rajiv couldn't shake the worry gnawing at him. Who was Arjun's father? How long had the boy been missing? And most importantly, would they be able to reunite him with his family before anything bad happened? Little did Rajiv know, the answers to these questions would lead him down a path he never could have anticipated. A journey that would change not only Arjun's life, but his own as well. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time Rajiv pulled into the bus depot. The night was quieter now, the storm having exhausted itself over the city. Inside the bus, Arjun had fallen asleep, his head resting against the window, his breathing soft and steady. Rajiv glanced at the boy in the rearview mirror, feeling a mixture of relief and concern. Relief that Arjun seemed safe for the moment, and concern about what came next. Rajiv knew he couldn't take the boy home with him. It wasn't right, and it might even cause more problems. But leaving him at the depot alone wasn't an option, either. After some thought, Rajiv decided to call the police. They would know how to handle situations like this, and hopefully, they could track down Arjun's family quickly. Pulling out his phone, Rajiv dialed the local police station. A tired-sounding officer answered after a few rings. "Yes, sir, how can I help you?" he asked. "I found a lost boy near the bus stop," Rajiv explained. "He says his name is Arjun, and he got separated from his father at a mall. Can someone come pick him up?" There was a pause on the other end before the officer replied. "Of course, sir. We'll send someone over immediately. Could you describe the boy and give us your location?" Rajiv provided all the necessary details, including Arjun's appearance and the fact that he was currently sleeping inside the bus. The officer assured him that help would arrive soon. With nothing left to do but wait, Rajiv turned off the engine and settled back into his seat. He kept glancing at Arjun, making sure the boy was still comfortable. Occasionally, he adjusted the blanket he'd wrapped around Arjun to keep him warm. It wasn't long before a police van pulled into the depot. 2 officers stepped out, their uniforms slightly damp from the lingering rain. One of them approached the bus while the other stayed behind to jot down notes. Rajiv greeted them warmly and explained the situation again. The officer nodded as he listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "And you say the boy mentioned being at a mall?" the officer asked. "Yes," Rajiv replied. "He said it was a big one with lots of shops and escalators. That's all I could get out of him." The officer scribbled something in his notebook. "We'll try to locate his parents based on that description. In the meantime, we'll take him to the station and make sure he's safe." Rajiv hesitated. "Is it okay if I stay with him until you find his family? He seems scared and I don't want him to feel abandoned." The officer gave him a small smile. "That's very kind of you, sir. If you're willing to accompany us, we won't object." With that settled, Rajiv gently woke Arjun. The boy stirred groggily, blinking up at Rajiv with sleepy eyes. "Beta, these officers are here to help you," Rajiv said softly. "They'll take us to the police station, and we'll find your Papa, okay?" Arjun nodded, though there was a hint of fear in his expression. Rajiv reassured him with a pat on the shoulder and helped him climb down from the bus. Together they followed the officers to the van. As they drove through the empty streets, Rajiv held Arjun's hand, trying to comfort him. Despite the late hour, the city felt eerily peaceful, the storm having washed away its usual chaos. At the police station, things moved quickly. The officers took down Arjun's description and began contacting nearby malls to see if anyone had reported a missing child. Meanwhile, Rajiv sat with Arjun in a small waiting area, offering words of encouragement whenever the boy seemed anxious. Time dragged on, and Rajiv started to worry. What if Arjun's family didn't show up? What if something terrible had happened to them? Just as these thoughts began to weigh heavily on him, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the station. A man in a sharp suit burst through the doors, his face pale with panic. Behind him trailed several policemen who had clearly been trying to calm him down. The man's eyes scanned the room frantically until they landed on Arjun. For a split second he froze, then rushed forward, tears streaming down his face. "Arjun!" the man cried, dropping to his knees beside the boy. "Oh my God, Arjun!" Arjun's face lit up with recognition. "Papa!" he exclaimed, throwing himself into the man's arms. The two clung to each other tightly, both crying openly. Watching the reunion, Rajiv felt a lump rise in his throat. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled him with immense relief. After a few moments, the man finally looked up, his gaze locking onto Rajiv. You found him?" he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Rajiv nodded modestifyingly. "Yes, sir. I found him at the bus stop. He was lost and scared, so I brought him here." The man stood up, still holding Arjun close. He extended a hand toward Rajiv. "Thank you," he said, earnest, some gratefully. "I don't know how to repay you. My son means everything to me." Rajiv shook the man's hand, feeling awkward but pleased. "It was nothing, sir. Anyone would have done the same." But the man shook his head firmly. "No, not everyone would. You showed kindness when it mattered most. Please, may I know your name?" "Rajiv Kumar," Rajiv replied. "I'm just a bus driver." The man smiled faintly. "Well, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, I am Sanjay Mehta, and I owe you more than words can express." Sanjay Mehta. The name struck a chord in Rajiv's mind. He'd heard it before. Everyone in Mumbai had. Sanjay Mehta was the CEO of Mehta Enterprises, one of the largest conglomerates in India. His company was involved in everything from technology to real estate, and his name was synonymous with success and wealth. Yet here he was, standing in a humble police station, thanking a simple bus driver for finding his son. Before Rajiv could fully process the situation, Sanjay continued, "Mr. Kumar, I'd like to meet you tomorrow to discuss this further. Will you come to my office?" Rajiv blinked in surprise. "To your office, sir? Why?" Sanjay's expression softened. "Because I want to thank you properly for saving my son. Please say you'll come." Rajiv hesitated. He wasn't used to dealing with people like Sanjay Mehta. Billionaires lived in a world far removed from his own, but how could he refuse such a heartfelt request? "All right, sir," he said finally. "I'll come." Sanjay nodded, visibly relieved. "Thank you. I'll send a car for you tomorrow morning. Until then, take care." As Rajiv watched Sanjay leave with Arjun, he couldn't shake the surreal feeling that had settled over him. This was no ordinary day. Something extraordinary was happening, and Rajiv had no idea where it would lead. All he knew was that his act of kindness had set off a chain reaction, one that promised to change his life forever. On the drive home, Rajiv's mind raced. What did Sanjay Mehta mean by thanking him properly? Would he offer money? Gifts? Or was it something else entirely? Rajiv tried to push the thoughts aside, reminding himself that he hadn't done anything special. Helping others was simply part of who he was. Still, curiosity gnawed at him, keeping him awake long after he arrived home. Priya noticed his distracted demeanor immediately. "What's wrong, Rajiv?" she asked, handing him a cup of tea. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Rajiv chuckled nervously. "Not a ghost, Priya. Just something unusual happened tonight." And so, he told her the whole story, from finding Arjun at the bus stop to meeting Sanjay Mehta at the police station. Priya listened intently, her eyes widening with each new detail. "So, you're going to meet a billionaire tomorrow?" she asked incredulously when he finished. Rajiv shrugged. It seems that way. Priya shook her head, smiling. Only you, Rajiv. Only you could stumble into something like this. Despite her teasing tone, Rajiv could see the pride in her eyes. She believed in him, just as he believed in doing the right thing, even when it seemed insignificant. As they prepared for bed, Rajiv couldn't help but wonder what awaited him the next day. Whatever it was, he knew one thing for certain. Life had a funny way of rewarding those who chose compassion over indifference. The next morning, Rajiv woke up earlier than usual. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. But Rajiv barely noticed the beauty outside his window. His mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the day ahead. He had agreed to meet Sanjay Mehta, one of the wealthiest men in India, at his corporate headquarters, a place Rajiv had only seen in newspapers or on television. As he got ready, Rajiv couldn't help but feel out of place. His wardrobe consisted mostly of simple shirts and trousers, nothing fancy enough for a meeting with someone like Sanjay Mehta. After rummaging through his closet, he settled on his best outfit: a neatly pressed white shirt, dark trousers, and polished leather shoes that Priya had insisted he buy years ago for family weddings. Standing in front of the mirror, Rajiv adjusted his collar nervously. "This will have to do," he muttered to himself. Priya, who had been watching him silently, stepped forward and straightened his shirt. "You look fine, Rajiv," she said reassuringly. "Just be yourself. That's what impressed Mr. Mehta. Yesterday, remember?" Rajiv nodded, though doubt still lingered in his mind. What could a billionaire possibly want with him? Was this some kind of publicity stunt? Or worse, was Rajiv being set up for something unexpected? He pushed those thoughts aside and focused on getting through the day one step at a time. True to his word, Sanjay Mehta sent a car to pick Rajiv up. A sleek black sedan arrived at Rajiv's modest apartment building shortly after breakfast. The driver, dressed in a crisp uniform, greeted Rajiv respectfully and held the door open for him. As Rajiv slid into the plush leather seat, he felt even more out of place. This wasn't how he usually traveled. His usual mode of transport was either a crowded bus or an old scooter that often broke down. The ride to Meta Enterprises headquarters was quiet, but awe-inspiring. Rajiv stared out the window as they passed towering skyscrapers, luxury hotels, and bustling shopping districts. Everything about the city seemed larger than life today, almost as if it were mocking his humble origins. When they finally arrived, at the gleaming glass and steel structure that housed Meta Enterprises, Rajiv felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The lobby of Meta Enterprises was unlike anything Rajiv had ever seen. Polished marble floors sparkled under bright chandeliers, and the air smelled faintly of fresh flowers. Employees dressed in sharp suits moved briskly between meetings, their faces glued to tablets or smartphones. At the center of the room stood a massive reception desk manned by two impeccably dressed women. One of them smiled warmly as Rajiv approached. "Good morning, Mr. Kumar," she said, checking her tablet. "Mr. Mehta is expecting you. Please follow me." Rajiv followed her to a private elevator reserved for executives. As the doors slid shut and the elevator began its ascent, Rajiv glanced at his reflection in the mirrored walls. For a brief moment, he imagined walking into a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. What was waiting for him upstairs? When the elevator doors opened, Rajiv found himself in a spacious executive suite. The walls were adorned with modern art, and large windows offered breathtaking views of the city skyline. A young assistant greeted him and led him to Sanjay Mehta's office. Before knocking, Rajiv took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. Sanjay Mehta was standing near his desk when Rajiv entered. Unlike the formal suit Rajiv had seen him wearing the previous night, Sanjay now wore a tailored blazer over a casual shirt and slacks. Despite his relaxed attire, he exuded authority and confidence. When he saw Rajiv, his face broke into a warm smile. "Mr. Kumar, thank you for coming," Sanjay said, extending his hand. "I hope you didn't have any trouble finding the place." "No trouble at all, sir," Rajiv replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Your driver made sure I got here safely." Sanjay gestured toward a seating area near the window. Please sit down. Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Tea would be nice, thank you, Rajiv said, settling into one of the plush chairs. He watched as Sanjay poured 2 cups of tea from a silver teapot and handed one to him. The gesture felt oddly personal, considering the vast difference in their social statuses. For a few moments they exchanged pleasantries. Sanjay asked about Rajiv's family and work, while Rajiv politely inquired about Arjun. It was clear that Sanjay genuinely cared about his son and appreciated Rajiv's role in keeping him safe. Finally, Sanjay leaned back in his chair and looked directly at Rajiv. Mr. Kumar, I can't begin to express how grateful I am for what you did last night. You didn't just find my son. You gave him comfort and reassurance during a terrifying experience. That's not something everyone would do. Rajiv shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Sir, I only did what anyone else would have done. It wasn't anything special. Sanjay shook his head firmly. No, Mr. Kumar, you're wrong. Not everyone would go out of their way to help a stranger, especially in a city like Mumbai. Too many people turn a blind eye to others' suffering. But you chose kindness, and that deserves recognition. Before Rajiv could respond, Sanjay reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. He placed it on the table between them. This is for you, he said simply. Rajiv stared at the envelope, unsure of what to say. Sir, I don't need anything. I insist, Sanjay interrupted gently. Open it, please. Reluctantly, Rajiv picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was a check for a sum so large that Rajiv's hands trembled as he held it. His eyes widened in disbelief. Sir, this is too much, he stammered. I didn't do anything extraordinary, Sanjay smiled knowingly. Yes, you did. Sometimes acts of kindness seem small to the person doing them, but their impact can be enormous. Consider this a token of gratitude, and perhaps an investment in your future. Use it wisely. Rajiv's mind raced. He had never seen so much money in his life. How could he possibly accept it? Yet Sanjay's tone left no room for argument. There was sincerity in his voice, a genuine desire to repay Rajiv's kindness. I don't know what to say, Rajiv admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't need to say anything, Sanjay replied. Just promise me one thing. Keep helping others, just as you helped my son. The world needs more people like you. Rajiv nodded, overwhelmed by emotion. Thank you, sir. I'll do my best. After the meeting ended, Rajiv left the office, feeling dazed. The chauffeur drove him back home, but Rajiv barely noticed the journey. His thoughts were consumed by the check in his pocket and the responsibility that came with it. What should he do with such a generous gift? Should he use it to improve his family's life? Donate it to charity? Start a new venture? When he arrived home, Priya immediately sensed his unease. What happened? She asked, sitting him down at the kitchen table. Did something go wrong? Rajiv hesitated before pulling out the check. Nothing went wrong, he said quietly. In fact, everything went better than I expected. Priya gasped when she saw the amount written on the check. Rajiv, this is incredible. What are you going to do with it? Rajiv sighed, rubbing his temples. I don't know yet. It's a lot of money, Priya. More than we've ever dreamed of. But it feels heavy somehow, like it comes with a purpose. Priya placed a comforting hand on his arm. Then let's figure out its purpose. Together, we'll make sure it does good. Not just for us, but for others too. Her words struck a chord in Rajiv. Over the next few days, he thought long and hard about how to use the money. He knew he wanted to give back to the community, to honor the spirit of kindness that had brought him here. Slowly, ideas began to form in his mind. First, he decided to renovate their home, fixing the leaky roof and upgrading the plumbing system. Then, he enrolled his children in better schools, ensuring they received quality education. Finally, he set aside a portion of the funds to start a small charitable initiative, a free transportation service for elderly citizens who couldn't afford public transit. Word of Rajiv's generosity spread quickly through his neighborhood. People began approaching him with ideas for other projects, from building playgrounds to organizing health camps. Rajiv listened to each suggestion carefully, knowing that this was his chance to create lasting change. Meanwhile, Sanjay Mehta kept in touch, inviting Rajiv to company events and introducing him to influential figures. Though Rajiv remained humble, he realized that he now had a platform, one that allowed him to amplify the voices of those who needed help the most. By the end of the month, Rajiv's life had transformed in ways he never imagined. He had gone from a simple bus driver to a symbol of hope in his community. Yet despite the newfound attention, Rajiv stayed grounded. He reminded himself daily of the lesson he had learned. True wealth wasn't measured in money, but in the lives touched and transformed by compassion. As he looked around at the people whose lives he had begun to impact, Rajiv felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would inspire countless others and leave an indelible mark on the world. Rajiv's newfound wealth didn't change him overnight, but it did give him opportunities he had never imagined. At first, he struggled to adjust to the weight of responsibility that came with such a large sum of money. Every decision felt monumental, as if one wrong move could undo all the good intentions behind Sanjay Mehta's gift. But Rajiv was determined not to let fear paralyze him. He reminded himself daily of Sanjay's words, "Keep helping others." Those simple words became his guiding principle. The first project Rajiv undertook was close to his heart, the free transportation service for elderly citizens. Growing up in a modest household, he had seen how difficult life could be for older people without financial support. Many of them lived alone, unable to afford even basic necessities like food or medicine, let alone transportation. For these individuals, something as simple as visiting a doctor or attending a family gathering often seemed impossible. Rajiv started small, using part of the money to purchase a second-hand minibus. He hired a driver and began offering rides to senior citizens in his neighborhood. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, dozens of elderly men and women were lining up outside Rajiv's house every morning, eager to take advantage of the service. Some needed help getting to hospitals for checkups. Others just wanted to visit friends or attend religious ceremonies. Whatever their reasons, Rajiv made sure they were treated with dignity and care. One day, while accompanying the bus on its route, Rajiv met an elderly woman named Savitri Devi. She was frail and walked with the aid of a cane, but her eyes sparkled with gratitude when she saw Rajiv. "Beta," she said, addressing him affectionately, "you've given me back my freedom. I haven't been able to go to the temple in years because I couldn't pay for a rickshaw. Now, thanks to you, I can pray again." Her words touched Rajiv deeply. It wasn't just about providing transportation. It was about restoring hope and independence to people who had almost given up. Inspired by Savitri Devi's story, Rajiv expanded the service to include more routes and additional buses. He also partnered with local clinics and pharmacies to offer discounted medical services to passengers. Word spread quickly, and soon, the initiative gained attention beyond his neighborhood. As Rajiv continued to grow his charitable efforts, he found himself drawn into conversations with community leaders and activists. These interactions opened his eyes to the broader challenges facing Mumbai's underprivileged communities. One evening, during a meeting at a local NGO, Rajiv learned about the alarming dropout rates among children in slum areas. Many families couldn't afford school fees, uniforms, or textbooks, forcing their kids to work instead of study. Others simply lacked access to quality education, leaving entire generations trapped in cycles of poverty. Determined to make a difference, Rajiv launched a scholarship program for underprivileged students. Using funds from Sanjay's gift, he identified bright, talented children living in slums and provided them with everything they needed to stay in school: tuition fees, books, uniforms, and even tutoring sessions. He also collaborated with teachers and volunteers to create after-school programs where children could learn arts, music, and sports. Among the beneficiaries of this program was a young girl named Anjali, Her father worked as a laborer, earning barely enough to feed the family while her mother took odd jobs washing dishes in nearby homes. Despite their hardships, Anjali excelled in academics, scoring top marks in her class. When Rajiv heard about her situation, he immediately enrolled her in the scholarship program. "I don't want to disappoint my parents," Anjali told Rajiv during one of their meetings. "They sacrifice so much for me to go to school. I want to become a doctor someday and help people like you're helping us now." Rajiv smiled, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "You will, Beta," he assured her. "With your hard work and determination, there's nothing you can't achieve." Over time, stories like Anjali's became common. Parents thanked Rajiv for giving their children a chance at a brighter future, and teachers praised his efforts to bridge the gap between privilege and poverty. What began as a small act of kindness had grown into a movement, a beacon of hope in a city often overshadowed by inequality. But Rajiv didn't stop there. As his reputation grew, so did the number of requests for assistance. People approached him with ideas ranging from building clean water facilities in slums to organizing skill development workshops for unemployed youth. While Rajiv couldn't fund every project himself, he used his connections to bring together like-minded individuals and organizations. Together, they formed a network dedicated to uplifting marginalized communities. One particularly ambitious project involved creating a community center in Rajiv's neighborhood. The idea came to him after witnessing firsthand the struggles faced by local residents. Many lacked safe spaces to gather, learn, or simply relax. Children played in narrow alleys filled with garbage, while adults spent their evenings huddled in cramped homes with no ventilation. Rajiv envisioned a place where everyone could come together, a hub for education, recreation, and social interaction. With Sanjay Mehta's continued support, Rajiv secured funding for the construction of the Kumar Community Center, named after Rajiv's family. The facility included classrooms, a library, a computer lab, and a playground. It also housed a health clinic staffed by volunteer doctors and nurses who offered free consultations and treatments to low-income families. When the center finally opened its doors 6 months later, the turnout was extraordinary. Hundreds of people attended the inauguration ceremony, including local politicians, activists, and media representatives. Arjun, now a teenager, stood proudly beside his father, Sanjay Mehta, as Rajiv delivered a heartfelt speech. "This center is not mine," Rajiv said, addressing the crowd. "It belongs to all of you, to every child who dreams of a better future, to every parent who works tirelessly to provide for their family, and to every elder who deserves respect and care. My only role was to plant the seed. You are the ones who will nurture it and watch it grow." His words earned thunderous applause, but Rajiv remained humble. To him, the true reward lay in seeing smiles on people's faces, in knowing that his actions had sparked a ripple effect of positivity and change. Despite his growing influence, Rajiv never forgot his roots. He continued driving his old scooter to work, refusing to upgrade to a luxury car. His wife, Priya, teased him about it occasionally, saying, "People will think you're hiding your wealth." But Rajiv laughed it off. "What's the point of having money if it changes who you are?" he would reply. "I'm still the same Rajiv Kumar, a bus driver at heart." Sanjay Mehta admired this quality in Rajiv. Over time, their relationship evolved from gratitude to genuine friendship. Sanjay often invited Rajiv to company events, introducing him to influential figures and encouraging him to share his experiences. Though Rajiv initially felt out of place among CEOs and entrepreneurs, he soon realized that his story resonated with people from all walks of life. "You remind us of why we do what we do," one businessman told Rajiv after hearing his speech at a charity gala. "It's easy to get caught up in profits and numbers, but you've shown us that real success is measured in lives transformed." Rajiv nodded, humbled by the compliment. He knew he wasn't perfect. There were days when self-doubt crept in, and nights when he wondered if he was doing enough. But whenever those thoughts surfaced, he remembered Arjun's tear-streaked face on that rainy night, and the gratitude in Savitri Devi's voice, and the determination in Anjali's eyes. Those memories kept him grounded, reminding him that Every act of kindness, no matter how small, mattered. By the end of the year, Rajiv's initiatives had touched thousands of lives. From free transportation for the elderly to scholarships for underprivileged children, from community centers to clean water projects, his efforts had created a domino effect of goodwill. Yet Rajiv knew this was only the beginning. There was still so much work to be done, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As he looked around at the people whose lives he had impacted, Rajiv felt a profound sense of purpose. Money had given him the means to help others, but it was his compassion and humility that truly inspired change. And though he had once been just a bus driver navigating Mumbai's chaotic streets, he now stood as a symbol of hope, a living testament to the power of kindness in action. Years passed, and Rajiv Kumar's name became synonymous with compassion and generosity in Mumbai. What had started as a simple act of kindness on a rainy night had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift those around him. The Kumar Community Center, once just an idea scribbled on the back of an envelope, was now a thriving hub of activity. Children laughed and played in the playground, teenagers studied diligently in the library, and elderly citizens gathered for yoga classes or storytelling sessions. It was more than just a building. It was a sanctuary for the community, a place where dreams were nurtured and lives transformed. On the day of the center's 5th anniversary celebration, Rajiv stood at the entrance, watching as families streamed in, their faces glowing with excitement. Balloons decorated the courtyard and colorful banners fluttered in the breeze. Inside, volunteers bustled about, setting up stalls for food, games, and health checkups. The air buzzed with anticipation, but Rajiv felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. This wasn't his accomplishment alone. It belonged to everyone who had contributed, from the donors who funded the project to the volunteers who kept it running, day after day. As he walked through the crowd, people greeted him warmly, calling out his name and thanking him for all he had done. "Rajiv, sir, without you, my son wouldn't have finished school," said one mother, her voice trembling with emotion. Another man approached him, holding the hand of his young daughter. "Thanks to your scholarship program, she's going to college next year. We can't thank you enough." Rajiv smiled humbly, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He never tired of hearing these stories. They reminded him why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. But deep down, he knew that none of it would have been possible without the support of others. Priya, his wife, had stood by him every step of the way, managing finances and organizing events. His children had pitched in too, volunteering their time and energy to help run programs at the center. Even Sanjay Mehta, whose initial gesture of gratitude had sparked everything, remained a steadfast ally, offering advice and resources whenever needed. The highlight of the celebration came when Arjun, now a confident young man studying engineering at a prestigious university, took the stage to speak. Dressed in a sharp suit, he looked every bit the son of a billionaire, yet his words carried the sincerity of someone who had experienced life's hardships firsthand. "5 years ago I was lost, literally and figuratively," Arjun began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I wandered the streets scared and alone until a kind bus driver found me. That bus driver was Rajiv Kumar." He paused, turning to look directly at Rajiv, who sat in the front row. "You saved me that night, Rajiv, sir. Not just by finding me, but by showing me what true kindness looks like. You didn't know me, but you cared for me as if I were your own child. And because of you, I learned the importance of giving back." Arjun went on to describe how Rajiv's actions had inspired him to pursue a career in technology aimed at solving real-world problems. "Every innovation I create will carry a piece of Rajiv sir's spirit," he said, "because he taught me that no matter how successful we become, our greatest achievement is helping others succeed." The audience erupted into applause, and Rajiv felt tears welling up in his eyes. He had always seen himself as an ordinary person doing ordinary things. To hear Arjun speak so passionately about his influence was overwhelming and humbling. After the ceremony ended, Rajiv stayed behind to clean up, refusing to leave until everything was in order. As he picked up stray cups and straightened chairs, he reflected on how far he had come. From driving a bus to standing at the helm of a movement that touched thousands of lives, his journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. Yet, despite the accolades and achievements, Rajiv remained grounded. He still woke up early every morning, drank his chai while reading the newspaper, and greeted neighbors with a warm smile. Fame hadn't changed him. It had only amplified his ability to make a difference. One evening, as he sat on the balcony of his modest home, Priya joined him carrying 2 steaming cups of tea. "You've done so much, Rajiv," she said softly, handing him a cup. "Do you ever stop and think about how different our lives are now?" Rajiv chuckled, taking a sip of tea. "Of course I do. Sometimes I wonder if it's all a dream. But then I remember that none of this happened overnight. It took hard work, patience, and a lot of help from people like you." Priya leaned back in her chair, gazing at the stars above. "Do you think it's enough? All the projects, the scholarships, the community centers, do you think it's making a real difference?" Rajiv thought for a moment before answering. "I don't know if it's enough. The world is full of challenges and there's always more to be done. But I believe that every small act of kindness adds up. Maybe we won't solve all the problems, but if we can improve even one life, it's worth it." Priya nodded, smiling. "That's what makes you special, Rajiv. You see the big picture, but you never lose sight of the little things, the moments that truly matter." In the years that followed, Rajiv continued to expand his efforts. The Kumar Foundation, established with the remaining funds from Sanjay Mehta's gift, grew into a nationwide organization focused on education, healthcare, and environmental sustainability. Schools were built in remote villages, mobile clinics traveled to underserved areas, and tree planting drives brought greenery back to urban landscapes. Through it all, Rajiv remained the heart and soul of the foundation, inspiring others to join him in creating a better future. When asked about his legacy during an interview, Rajiv shrugged modestly. "I don't think about legacies," he said. "I just try to live each day with purpose. If my actions inspire someone else to be kind, then that's all the legacy I need." His humility endeared him to millions. People from all over the country wrote letters, sharing how his story had motivated them to volunteer, donate, or simply lend a helping hand to someone in need. Teachers used his example to teach students about empathy, and business leaders cited him as proof that success isn't measured by wealth alone. Even Sanjay Mehta, now retired, often spoke about Rajiv in interviews. "He reminded me of something I had forgotten, that true leadership isn't about power or money. It's about serving others," Sanjay once remarked. Rajiv Kumar may have started as a bus driver, but he ended up changing the world, one act of kindness at a time. Decades later, when Rajiv finally retired, the Kumar Community Center hosted a grand farewell event in his honor. Hundreds of people attended, including former beneficiaries of his programs, colleagues, friends, and family. Arjun gave another heartfelt speech, this time reflecting on how Rajiv's values had shaped his own life. "He taught me that greatness isn't about titles or bank balances," Arjun said. "It's about leaving the world a little better than you found it." As Rajiv listened, surrounded by loved ones, he felt a profound sense of peace. He had spent his life giving to others, and in return, he had received more love and gratitude than he could have imagined. His journey had come full circle, from a rainy night when he chose compassion over indifference to a lifetime dedicated to making a difference. When the event ended, Rajiv stood outside the center, watching as people drifted away into the night. The lights cast a golden glow over the building, illuminating the plaque near the entrance that read, "Dedicated to Rajiv Kumar, a humble hero who believed in the power of kindness." For a moment, Rajiv allowed himself to bask in the warmth of the moment. Then, turning to Priya, he smiled. "Well, it's not really goodbye," he said. "There's still so much to do." And with that, Rajiv Kumar stepped forward once again, ready to continue the work he loved. Because for him, kindness wasn't just an act, it was a way of life.